morning and welcome. Hope you guys are having a happy start to your Monday. I've got a fun sculpt planned for us today. I also forgot to double check my mic. Yeah, looks like it's working good. Alright. Well, today we're going to be sculpting a Lizardfolk snake oil salesman. So he's going to have some high fantasy aspects to him because he's a lizard man. And he's also going to be a con artist. So I'm going to give him a fedora, a nice suit, and then of course a belt with all these little pouches and illegal, useless substances that he is selling. If you're not familiar, snake oil is just like, it was like a end-all be-all cure. It's more on like the Wild West age. It doesn't actually do anything. They just sell it like this, it's this magical elixir. So, has some ties to the real world, but obviously this could be a lizard man. I don't have a Lizardfolk base mesh. I've never sculpted one before actually. But it's gonna have very similar vibes to my kobolds. So I have my kobold base mesh that I made a couple weeks ago, loaded in, and we'll kind of get started. I'm feeling kind of quiet and soft this Monday morning, so might not be as chatty as usual, but like always, if you guys have questions, please ask, and I'll probably perk up as the coffee starts to kick in. All right, let's get started, shall we? All right, as much as I love these little goofy teeth, it's not very lizardy. So, I think we're gonna remove all of these horns. And we're gonna start adjusting this base shape here. I'll actually go ahead and put a little stamp of him up here. That way we can kind of keep track of our progress as we go. All right. So the first thing I'm gonna do is kind of adjust this head shape. It's gonna have a much rounder, flatter nose. I have a bunch of references of lizards on the left here for me. That's on a screen that you guys cannot see. All right, I have a very, very round eyeball. And I'm not too worried about this coming across as too expressionless because I can always add that later on. Right now I want to make sure I'm really hitting these key forms, which for right now is going to be rounding out a lot of these shapes here. Think like iguana-esque. And then this entire snoot is impossibly too long to be a lizard, so we're going to go ahead and shorten those up as well. I think about the halfway point would be nicer. I also found a new lo-fi artist I'm listening to that is more piano based, which has been really enjoyable. For those of you that don't know, I also play piano. I haven't played much in the last few years, but it's something that I'm hoping to start fitting back into my daily schedule again. There we go, that's looking much more lizard-like. These warm, earthy tones are just not doing it for me, so I'm gonna go ahead and paint him some greens. The greens don't actually affect the 3D printable model. Not that any colors do. Any color I do doesn't affect the 3D printable model. That's just something that I like to do for me. I used to do it with every single model, and then I stopped poly painting because, oh goodness, I've sculpted hundreds and hundreds of models at this point, closing in on 1,000. And I just didn't need it, but then I started live streaming again, and you guys really enjoyed it, so I've got no problem doing this again. There we go, we're looking much more lizardy. I do like having a two-tone look, and all that means is that the top ridge of them will be darker than the underbelly, which is this lighter color. To block that in, I like having my paintbrush turn to drag rectangle, so instead of having a bunch of little dots applying paint, it's just one big like bloom effect of paint. Alright, that's looking nice. And his body is all hunched over and crumpled because again, I had this as my kobold base originally, which are kind of goofier little creatures. If you guys have played Baldur's Gate, I love, oh, what's his name? That little guy who, he always asks like, do you want a Trito? Anyway, if you played Baldur's Gate 3 and you're in Act 3 where the circus is, there's a little kobold that has really funny energy. Also going to darken up these nails right here. Where is his entire body? Where did it go? I have all these polygroups, so if I select certain pieces, it will just hide the rest, but it's not deleted or anything. There we go. All right, that's looking much more lizard-like, I'd say. I'm not certain if I'm gonna give him a tail or not. I think I'm going to. I think that'd be fun. Oh, I can already feel the coffee kicking in. Feeling a little more perky. All right, I'd say that's much more lizard-like. I don't normally do this, but I'm actually gonna put in a transpose master right away. We're gonna straighten up that posture and change his overall proportions because I'd like to be able to save this as a base mesh that I can use quickly in the future as well. All right, so to do that, I'm gonna go to Z plugin and I'm gonna jump over to transpose master. By clicking T-pose mesh, it kind of initiates that process. There we go. So I had an unusual weekend. It was really enjoyable, but I got a lot of work done still, which I like to not do. I like to make sure that my weekends are not creative, but I like to really give myself a mental break on the weekends. But I actually had a side commission. I need to get some work done. I'm working on a chess set that is all wolves. So got a lot of work done on that. And then on top of that, Ricky and I did a little bit of adventuring downtown Knoxville. We recently moved to Tennessee this year. I grew up my entire life in California, so it's been quite the adjustment, but it's been a fantastic adjustment. Not necessarily as much of the culture shock as I was expecting. We've kind of just fit right in, actually. But that being said, I did do some work this weekend, so I'm really going to try to take it easy in my pacing on these live streams because I don't want to burn myself out because I didn't have a creative-less weekend as I usually aim for. Isn't it amazing how much proportions can just change the entire perception of a character? Again, for people kind of just jumping in, we started with this base mesh that I have stamped at the top left here. I keep saying base mesh, they're just meshes that I've made in the past for the characters. But whenever I come across a character I've never made before, I need to make a new one. So today I am making a Lizardfolk, which requires a new mesh. That's one thing about being a high fantasy artist. Oh my goodness, it requires so many different meshes and skills, and I'm very good at sculpting all sorts of animals now. It's a common saying in art, you need to know the rules before you break them, so yes. Oliver is here, good morning. Good to see you. Taylor as well. She says, looks like Godzilla 1998. I'm gonna take that as a compliment because he's supposed to be a lizard man. I have not seen any Godzilla movies. I've definitely seen them on in the background before. I know that one of the more recent Godzilla movies, I think it was Godzilla 1, people were just obsessed with and it received a lot of praise. All right. He's not as thin as I want him to be yet, so let's go ahead and remove a lot of volume off of his back. Because I don't really imagine these lizard men to be super bulky. I'm thinking of the Argonians from Skyrim, but I didn't grab any references of them, so I'm not going for that look too much. I'm very pleased that he looks Godzilla-y though, because he needs to look lizardy. I have a hard time getting lizard heads correct sometimes because they're so flat. I also never had many reptiles as pets growing up. I briefly had a corn snake when I was in college and it ran away, which sounds terribly not responsible of me. I take a lot of pride in the way I take care of my animals and just basic husbandry and stuff. But this darn snake, so during winter I have a heat pad underneath her tank and there was a little wire that would feed through. The wire and the hole were the same size. I still to this day have no idea how she got out. I'm assuming it's through that she pushed one out of the way and she was just a tiny little corn snake. She was mostly pink and her name was Estelle. Still very sad about that, even though it's been years. It's the only pet I've ever lost. Not like ran away, lost. Obviously I've had pets pass away over the years. K9's here as well. Howdy, howdy. Taylor says, yes, these proportions are just like the 98 one. No kidding. Which stands out from the other variants. Oh, that's really cool. Happy accident. Also, I agree with their artistic vision. I feel like this is what a lizard man should look like. For those just tuning in, this is going to be a snake oil salesman lizardman, which is very on the nose and very funny to me. All right, I'm pretty happy with these proportions. Our Godzilla man is coming out lovely. I guess it's not surprising I haven't seen the 98 Godzilla. When that came out, I was 2 years old. I mean, I guess there's nothing stopping me from watching it now. Right now I'm kind of bringing out his ribcage a bit further and then pushing his abdominal muscles in to give a more intentional look on the musculature here. There we are. All right, I like it. This is a base mesh that I'm happy to save. So I'm gonna put it back, going to T-pose sub T. Taylor says, I was 1. Okay, yeah, so we're almost the exact same age. And then Xander's here, hello, welcome. He says, Chad Kobold. Yeah, he said humanoid lizard man. Chad Kobold is accurate for what I'm going for, because I even start with my Kobold base mesh, but this is gonna be a Lizardfolk, so that's pretty accurate. Taylor says, I was just going to say Kobold. All right. Very pleased with this. We're going to delete this T-pose mesh, and now I'm going to save this base mesh so I have it for later. And that's going to go into my master tools under Z bodies, animal, humanoids. Call this Lizardfolk. And I'll probably go back into this after the stream and make a more feminine version. I like to have male, female, all my variants. All right, well, let's get to the snake oil salesman part of this. He's going to have a nice hat. He's going to be in a suit. It's going to be great. All right, first things first. The hat that he's going to have is actually a fedora, if I remember correctly. I actually grabbed one before the stream started. I'm not sure if I'm going to... It's from thebasemesh.com, but it's straight from the site, so I'm going to need to be doing some adjusting to make it the way I want it. Pretty clean. There we are. And then as we go, I'll be poly painting as well. So now let's get all of our main shapes blocked out here. How do you fit a hat onto a lizard? That's looking correctish. I can fix any minor clipping later on. I'm mostly looking at how it's gonna sit. Probably pretty upright like that. Yep, that's it. Let's give this a darker chocolatey color. I'll make his eyes the same color. All right, let's keep moving on. So this is how the live stream starts out. I make sure I have a base mesh that I like, usually modifying one that I've pre-existing had. And then I go through my other asset libraries that I've kind of pinned together over the years, grabbing pieces that might be useful, then move on to the sculpting from scratch element. After that, it's posing and post-processing, and then I share this file with y'all for free. These are all 3D printable files. So if you have a 3D printer or you know somebody that has one, this will be nice for you. All right, I'm not seeing any pieces I want here, but I might want this collar. This is a pretty low poly collar. I find that every collar I make for different suits requires a lot of different finessing. So I just made one that's really low poly for me to make custom each time. There we go. Sandra says, I just got my Tarrasque from the full gold Kickstarter. Thank you. Ooh, that sounds awesome. Taylor continues, will he have a giant backpack spilling out curios? No, he won't have a backpack, but he will have a little, like a belt with pouches and bottles and stuff. All right. Don't want this quite yet. I guess I will be giving him shoes. Usually for my animal humanoids, they don't end up with shoes, but in this case, he might need one. I do have a really nice vest, which I've actually been getting a lot of use out of recently. For some reason, I have it saved under chef coat. Not sure how this was a chef coat at any point, but I guess I used it for that at one point. Alright, doing some fine adjustments with the 3D gizmo here. And now I'm gonna go with my move brush at a pretty high Z intensity and do some confident moves. There we go. I say confident because if you do a bunch of tiny little moves with the move brush, it makes the whole thing look kind of lumpy. So I want it to be pretty high intensity with a large brush and taking big sections of material at a time. That's the best way to fit it to a new mesh. My asset library is pretty much by default meant to fit humans, which isn't too different than our lizard man here, but there still are some key differences. I like this collar a lot. I'm going to use it to replace the small collar that's right here. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that piece. There we are. And then I don't want two lines of buttons here. This is going to be a pretty standard coat, so it's only going to have one row of buttons. There we go. I also would like these buttons to be a bit smaller, so I'm going to split them off the mesh, reduce the size, using the 3D gizmo to do that. I'm going to mask the bottom button and then create just a few more. Checking all my angles to make sure the buttons aren't floating off the vest. Otherwise, they will not 3D print. There we go. All right, he's looking a little fancier, a little detective-like. Xander says, looking like a lounge lizard, right? I like that. Detective Godzilla. I appreciate your guys' funny little names coming in. K9 says, what were you just using to look at your whole library of clothes you'd made? Great question. Let's see, over here. So what this is a Z tool where I've imported all of the meshes that I like. You can import them manually, but what I did was I exported a bunch of OBJs into a folder, just somewhere on my computer, I think it was my downloads. And then I went to Z plugin, subtool master, multi-append. And that allowed me to select like 50 OBJs at once. And then I did have to go through and manually organize them, but it's not as bad as you think. I just kept clicking on different not subtools. What are they all called? Subtools. ZBrush is confusing because you have tools and subtools, and then the ZPR houses all of them like a big umbrella term. Anyway, but I went through all my subtools and I clicked on Unify, which puts them in the center of the scene like this. And then I just took my 3D gizmo and just whoop, resized, moved. So it took me about, I don't know, 10 minutes to make each master folder initially. I hope that answered your question. But yeah, I'm just going to different tools up here. All right, back to our lounge lizard / detective Godzilla. He definitely needs pants at this point. This job requires pants. All right, this is kind of tricky because I want him to be in like these nice slacks, but he has digitigrade legs, which just means they have like that extra bend in them. And I usually only put them in shorts for a reason. I've actually never tried to put pants on a model like this. So I'm gonna see if we like pants. If we don't like pants, we're just gonna delete it. And then he's just gonna be a businessman in shorts, which I hate that. We're gonna try to make this work. You can't be a businessman when we wear shorts. It's just, unless you work on the beach. I do want to give him a very raised collar because I just think that's fun. Oh yeah, that's fabulous. Canine says, clever way to set this up. Thank you, Canine. I love when people ask questions about my process. I'm always happy to share. No secrets here. Very, very transparent on my whole process. So right now what I'm doing is I'm creating these slacks. So this is going to be kind of a different process than my usual. Usually I'll mask it on the whole, part of the leg where I want the pants to go. But if I do that, these are multiple subtools, so I can't mask across multiple subtools unless I merge them, but I do want them separate. It just makes posing easier. All right, let's go ahead and extract. I always extract at 0 thickness. Just makes the mesh easier to handle. And that way, as I pose, I don't end up with any odd gaps. We're gonna give these slacks a nice darker color. I also like that for the buttons. I'm moving pretty quickly here, so if you're trying to figure out what's going on, ask questions. For the most part, if you're just here to hang out, have a good time, this definitely makes enough sense. But if you're also an aspiring student and you want to learn, this would be very hard to follow. Okay. Oliver says, maybe a shorts company business person would wear shorts? Okay, can let that slide, maybe. Wear your own product, Xander says, define shorts because his angles are halfway up his legs. Right? Yeah, we'll see. All right, so we're gonna move this down. Okay, this isn't the worst case scenario. We'll do just kind of like long shorts. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and save a copy of these just in case this is what we needed to resort back to. And now I'm gonna continue down this line. We're also gonna subdivide just once. Gonna need more polys than usual to stretch them. I really should have just merged a copy of these legs and then I could extract without having to manually fit them on. That, looking in hindsight, that would have been a much easier way to do this. But that's fine, we're here, so we're continuing. We're gonna fix all these weird stretch polygons by Z-meshing it same. And now we're gonna fit them to the leg. Just roughly. Z-meshing again. Okay, this doesn't look as bad as I thought it would. Oh yeah, that looks fine. I don't know. I was really expecting this to look silly. Obviously we need to fit them a little better to his legs. And so to do that, I'm gonna make sure there's a nice little flare at the edge of these slacks. Oh yeah, he's got some nice pants, guys. Didn't expect that to work as well as it did. I like it much better than these weird, what are they called? Long shorts? I feel like there's a name for them. So again, shorts, oops, slacks. Oh my goodness, would you stop hiding the whole body? ZBrush, work with me. There we go. I definitely need the long pants to make the silhouette look nice. All right, we're gonna delete the weird shorts. We did not need them. And now we're gonna do a better job at fitting these pants. They're a little puffy on him right now. That's just because I've done a lot of deformations. So we're gonna fit them to him a little better. Very nice. Another way to make this a little easier on myself is I can turn on transparency and then I can actually see his body underneath instead of just guessing where it's at. Because I sculpted this mesh just now, I pretty much know where everything is. But turning on transparency is definitely helpful. All right, those fit really nice. I imagine these would be a pain for him to put on in the morning with these legs, but I wouldn't know. Xander says he should have the Scrooge McDuck foot club things. Maybe, I could see that being nice. Oh, he said disregard, switch to pants. Oh, gotcha, I hear ya. Kanon says he was born with them on. They grew with him. I like that. I think that's a better answer here than him. That's a very unhinged answer. So straight out of the egg, he hatched with pants on, but nothing else. I mean, it's a world of magic. We're dealing with a lizard man here. Anything's possible. I'm going to shorten this vest just a touch, and that's because I want to make a lot of room for this belt I'll be putting on him. Again, he's a snake oil salesman, so I need this belt to be a strong point of the model. I also need to give him sleeves for his coat. I like doing the sleeves separate. I just find them a little easier to manage. Especially when I pose, it makes this whole shoulder deformation area not as much of a pain. All right, there we go. We got some really easy sleeves. Again, I'm using mask and extract to achieve that. I'm gonna fit this collar to him just a bit better. Very tall collar. Let me go through and make this top piece a bit longer. Waiting for autosave to finish. You never want to mess with ZBrush when it's autosaving. It will crash on you. There we go. Make that collar just a touch longer. I'll need to update my little stamp over here soon because he's looking so different. If people hop into the stream, I don't think they're going to understand that's what we started with. Giving him a bit longer sleeves here because you don't want dorky short sleeves with a nice suit. And this guy can definitely afford a tailor. He has conned many people. All right, looking good. All right, Oliver said with side buttons, it could work alongside the side of each leg if they had leg shirts. I could see that, like they're just really open and then you button them up at the end. I don't mind that. It might actually be a nice detail they add later. Kanon says, will the collar being that thin print okay? Oh, yeah, no, it's not even like a real mesh right now. I think if I turn double, there we go. So I have double turned on, which will make it so a single poly is visible from both sides. So it's actually not even real right now. It's an illusion. Very, very good question though. The answer is no, this is absolutely not 3D printable. This is just part of the construction phase. Think of it almost like a pencil sketch before you ink it. So if I go to dynamic, here I can actually make the mesh a real thing. So you can see there's now some thickness there. If I turn off dynamic, you'll see that it doesn't even exist anymore. So I'm gonna do a quick before and after. Before, after, before, after. I like how you worded that though, like, hey, I'm no 3D printing wizard. I also like that because it implies that I am a 3D printing wizard. I guess I could call myself that. I've printed like thousands of minis, most of them being my own. All right, looking quite nice, very fancy. And Canine says, okay. Yeah, good question though. Very good question. For people that are new to my stream, hi, my name is Mia. I'm part of M3DM, which is short for Mia's 3D Models. And I make 3D printable models for a living. And they're all in the tabletop space. So think Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, all that kind of good stuff. If you guys are enjoying the stream, know that I stream regularly, Monday through Friday, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. If you have a great memory, you can just remember that. Otherwise, I recommend that you subscribe and then you'll just get notified when I go live. There we go. All right, pretty happy with this so far. Xander says, a 3D printing wizard, 3D printing a 3D printed lizard. Yes, that is me. That'll be my new tagline, just for this stream. Instead of saying, hi, my name is Mia to new viewers, I'll say that mouthful. And make an impression. So right now I'm gonna add more structure to these sleeves by just adding a little bit of a lip on the edge here. There we go. And then in my reference here, I actually have a little coat or like a shirt that sticks out underneath, and I really like how it looks. It has a nice little button on it too. So I'm actually gonna just make the illusion of that. So yeah, this is like his shirt that's poking out underneath. I'll make it a white color. Again, I never work with pure whites or pure blacks when I'm painting because it just makes everything else look so high contrast and it's not very flattering. Very nice. More layers, the better. I might even want to have a bit of that shirt poking out right here, but I'll decide that in just a second. I'm gonna do the same treatment where I use close holes and then add a small hem to the shirt underneath here. There we go. I think it'd be nice to grab one of these buttons and let's pin them on the edge of his sleeve. It's a pretty small detail, but I think stuff like this really makes the model shine. There we go, mirror weld. Very nice. Looking pretty dapper, pretty fancy here. All right, let's see if there's any other pieces I want to add. Don't think I'm gonna give him shoes. I like having his clawed feet sticking out. He's got a suit, got a fedora. He'll also have a cane with a decorative top and then a belt with some pouches. Let's go ahead and find what belt I want to use. This is going to be one of the most important parts of the model, so I'm going to want a belt with a lot of good structure on it. I think this belt fits the time period look the best. So right now I'm just carefully fitting this belt to the body. Give it a little bit of a slant because I'll be putting more belts, or not belts, more pouches on one side than the other. There we go. I don't need this anymore, and I do not need this anymore. But I will want to bring in my master tools of items. I have all kinds of little items and bits and bobs I've made over the years. All right, these little potions are gonna be perfect. I already had them in mind. I made this years ago for my plague doctor. And now it'll be repurposed for my snake oil salesman. I'll probably pin some of these to his coat as well. He's just gonna be loaded up with potions and all kinds of silly stuff. Also, while we're at it, I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of our kobold starting point because it's looking so different, you can't really tell. I mean, I guess what I could do is I could kind of like stack it right here. I feel like that's a little more clear, like our before, like our first starting point or second. I'm not really using that part of the screen, so yeah. If it starts looking too cluttered, let me know. Waiting for that autosave to go through. All right, I think a nice color for this accent would be yellow. So let's go ahead and make these stitches and stuff will be that dark brown. Oh, I forgot these already have poly paint on them, which is very nice, but not really the color scheme that I want. So what I can do is I can actually go to my poly paint menu right here and adjust colors. I'm gonna brighten them up quite a bit. And let's just pitch the hue. There we go. I like the little pink caps too. Again, the poly paint doesn't affect the 3D printable model. This is just a fun thing for me. Yeah, Xander mentioned it's kind of like an Animorph cover. I agree. I actually never, I know I read a couple of those books, but it was like in 3rd grade, and so I just don't remember it all. I didn't super care for them. When I was in grade school, I read a lot of the Warrior Cat series, so absolutely loved those books. I actually saw a box set for them recently in a bookstore I was in yesterday. I'd like to think that these little potions I have pinned kind of like where his breast pocket would be like his most premium fancy potions. Even though the reality is these are probably all just like dyed water. I'm also going to add a slight curve to this so it fits the body better. There we go. Much better. Again, he's gonna have a lot of his wares on him because he's kind of like a, again, when you're a con artist, you have to travel quite a bit. That way you can avoid all the people that you've upset after you've conned. All right, I'm happy with all these little potions I have on him. And now I'm gonna start adding a bunch of little pouches. Ooh, I like this little frill I have right here. I might tuck that into a shirt. Let's go ahead and do that really quickly before I forget. All right, this will be the same white color as his shirt that's poking out under his sleeves. And I'm just gonna kind of set it right here. Again, this is a distinguished businessman, guys. I used to remember what the name was for this. It's got a fancy name that's not just like a handkerchief, even though it's functionally what it is. I love that. That's a really nice detail for this model. Right now I'm kind of making sure it fits nicely into his coat, minimizing any clipping of the mesh. There we go. Very nice. Taylor says, you do seem like a warrior cats person. I don't even know what that means, but I do. Somewhere deep down I know exactly what that means. Alrighty, I want to like put a bunch of like little arcane bits on him where it's like little skulls and stuff, but again, that would be very off-putting and probably not very good for his business, so I'm not going to do that. Oh, you guys mentioned a backpack earlier with like all these little curios spilling out of it. I have a nice backpack that I can do for that. We'll see. I'm thinking about it. Nice little quick paint job on these. And that's possible because I have so many different poly groups on them, so I can quickly select these poly groups and then apply paint. Taylor says, will he have shoulder straps? One of them unbuttoned and blowing in the air. I didn't plan on it, no. Kind of like suspenders? Cool. This is a really fun character. I'm gonna go ahead and merge down all these potions because I have a lot of pieces kind of floating around now. I'm gonna make this collar a real thing now. I'm gonna do that by going to dynamic and smooth subdiv. I usually do 0 subdiv. In this case, I might just do 1. Excuse me. There we are. Very nice. Taylor continues, not suspenders, but the shoulder straps on a coat. I don't know what that is. Like, coats with a shoulder strap? Oh, and then Xander said ascot. I don't know if that's the word you're looking for. Yes, that is the word I was looking for earlier. coat shoulder strap. I'm gonna laugh when I look at it and I'm like immediately no. For some reason, like nothing is coming to mind at all. I'm seeing the ones that are like right here. I think that would be cute. I think that might be what you're talking about too. Even if that's not what you're talking about, it's kind of a happy accident because now I want to have that piece on here, so I'm going to be adding it. That'll just be a nice little detail on here. And I'm probably gonna add the same button detail that I have on the coat and the edge of the sleeves. Also gonna go with the ZBrush really quick and extrude the edges. It wants to crush the edges. Nope, we are adding material, not deleting it. QMesh is angry, so we're gonna go to Polyloop instead. There we go. There we are. And then I want to make sure it's inset. Because right now I have like two different meshes that are kind of fighting. And I want to have one that's very clearly sitting on top. Right now I'm just kind of going with my damp sander brush and just crushing that edge. And then fitting that. There we go. Nice and simple. And then adding that button detail. Now I'm curious if this is what you're talking about, Taylor. If it wasn't, very happy accident. I think this is a really nice detail to add. Grab a mask on the bottom here and just pull it straight down. I want to make sure there's no weird clipping on the mesh. There we go. All right, and then mirror. All set. Very nice. More details. It is what you're talking about. Excellent. Well, thank you. I'm having one of them unbuttoned. I'm not going to do that because I want him to look pretty well kept. I think he'd be a successful con man, so he definitely could afford a tailor. I still like that idea though. I've been using this coat a lot recently. It's got a lot of use. Adding some more seams and construction to this. Turn on lazy radius to help me with these curves. And now we're gonna add some fabric folds. To do this, I like to have standard selected, the intensity pretty high, and lazy mouse. And I'll kind of just do some test strokes to see if I like the results. Yes, that looks nice. Not going to be too many fabric folds on this because this is me somewhat stiffer material that's well fit. But I will have them by the button. So right now I'm going back and forth with solo turned on so I can kind of see where those buttons are. If I leave everything visible, it won't just sculpt on the mesh, it'll kind of deform around it. Xander says, looking a lot like Lizard Indiana Jones right now. He definitely could be more of an adventurer, but it's the hat that's making you think that more than anything. I definitely see it. I'm not mad about it. It definitely means he could fit in many different scenarios. It's a diverse model. All right, kind of blocked out all the dents of where those buttons are, and now add some stretch marks. There we go. They're pretty exaggerated. That'll just help with printing too. Coming together. The fabric folds out a lot. We're gonna use close holes on these pants and then add a nice thick trim piece on the bottom. Very good. Now time to detail the pants. Can add a seam right down the side. Probably the craziest zigzag seam I've ever had to do on pants, but that's just because of his legs. There we go. There'll be quite a bit of fabric folds around his knees because the material has to bend so much right here. I could probably get some pretty nice draping fabric folds off the back of his hawk too. Alright, it's coming together pretty quickly. I'll definitely be able to have this model finished on stream for y'all today, and I'll be sharing this file at the end with you, specifically the 3D printable file. I won't have the pre-supported files like I normally offer because I just sculpted it, so I haven't printed it quite yet. If you want the pre-supported files, I offer this all on Patreon. If you also want to decide what I sculpt next, you can also do that. Everything I sculpt on here is a Patreon request. I have those links pinned in the description. All right, coming out nicely. This is like one of my favorite parts, is adding all these details. When I'm doing a more complicated pose, I will wait to add fabric folds until after he's posed. But in this case, he's mostly just gonna be standing and like posturing with a cane in his hand, so I don't have to worry about anything too complex going on. Gonna run a seam down the side starting from his shoulder. And I run back over that seam with inflate, and it kind of just nicely brings it together. I'm gonna do the same thing for the underside. Really minor details, but I like to call them the really good paint catchers. There we go. Do some loose fabric folds on this little undershirt that's poking out. Lovely. All right, most of his details are complete. I'm gonna add a little more structure to his hands here. To do that, I have a chisel brush that comes default with ZBrush, and I'm just gonna be adding some little detail here on his knuckles. Gives more of that lizard appearance. And Taylor says maybe more of a bowler hat would work. A bowler hat was my first choice as well. The Patreon requester specifically mentioned a fedora, but most of my Patreon requesters aren't very picky. So if I find something that I think that looks better, I don't think that they would mind. But I definitely thought bowler hat as well. The fedora is really giving Indiana Jones. I also haven't done anything with the hat quite yet, so I can, right now it's not curved at all on the brim, so curving that's gonna help a lot. I'm going to sharpen this collar up by using Dam Standard and holding Alt and just dragging a line on the curve here. Also going to have back face mask enabled so that way it's not deforming the underside of the mesh. It's a bit nicer. Alright, so for this fedora, don't really have a lot of experience with fedoras. Look, just really quickly, I bend the edges of that. We're looking cowboy now. It's gotta be a bowler hat. Yeah, I just don't think this, I could even do a top hat. But the fedora is just not gonna work. It's really giving Indiana Jones. Ooh, I like this little bottle as well. Gonna throw that in here. I might use it, I might not, but if I don't throw it in here, I'm not gonna remember. I'm gonna throw this top hat on and see how I like that. Don't mind like the gears and stuff on it. There we go. It even fits his funny little curved head. I like the tiny bowler hat. I'm gonna make it fit his head better, but it being really small I find very funny. Xander says, reminds me of a kobold shopkeeper in Baldur's Gate 3. I can see that for sure. The initial base mesh I started was based off of the cute little dude in the circus area. The Trito. I can't remember what his name is. I don't think it's Trito. He just says that and it's very cute. I'm liking his little funny hat. It definitely needs some details on it for sure. I wonder if I can tuck in some little bottles into his hat instead of a feather. I don't mind it. Coming out pretty nice. Alright, so here's our progress, guys, so far. Let's see, we're at a good little chunk in the stream here. We're about an hour in. Oh, Miguel's here. Hello, welcome. What a dapper looking fellow. Thank you. He's a snake oil salesman as a Lizardfolk. I find it very funny. But alright, so here we go. Here's a little recap before I take my little 5-minute break. So we started here with our nice little base mesh. This is a kobold base mesh I made probably about a month ago. I made a kobold paladin and his armor does not fit him. It's like huge all over him, really cute. So that's what I made this for. And I somewhat tried to base this off of that little kobold in the circus from Baldur's Gate 3. Obviously, we're not doing a kobold today, but it's very similar. We're doing a lizardfolk. So lizard-y, but not so tiny like a kobold. So I needed to resize his proportions, and so I did so. And then I gave him some basic clothes. The requester specifically wanted a suit, fedora, and a cane with a belt with some pouches and potions. We achieved most of that, but the fedora, he just looks like an adventurer instead of a snake oil salesman. So this tiny little bowler hat I think is suiting him a lot better. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at as of right now. I'll need to add some more scales to his face and whatnot. Oh, Royce is here. Hello and welcome. I believe that you're new. Royce says, not sure how I ended up here, but this interests me. It's crazy how fast you're working on this. Oh, thank you. And also, welcome. Yeah, I make 3D printable minis for a living. They are usually used for minis like Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, but it doesn't have to be. I have quite a few people that print them really big, like 6 inches or taller, and use them as little statues. I don't imagine this is gonna be a statue for anyone's dining room table. Last week I did this angelic belly dancer who was just beautiful. She's a little more statue worthy. I mean, he is too. He's very nice, but you get my point. All right, I'm gonna take like a 2-3 minute break, drink some water and stretch, and then I'll be back. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I stream Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. If you don't want to have to remember that, just subscribe and you'll get notified. Okay, little ending spiel done. Voice is getting scratchy. I'm gonna take a little break. I'll be right back. Alright, hello and welcome back. I had a restful break, nice stretch, drank a bunch of water, kind of de-scratchified my voice. Alrighty, well, it's been a very productive first hour here. We made a brand new base mesh for Lizardfolk, and we got him all dressed up in clothing, and we got quite a bit of details laid on here as well. So this next part here is going to be posing him, and then post-processing. And then most of you guys know the drill, but at the end I share the 3D printable model for free. If you're watching in the future, it's no longer free because this is what I do for a living full-time. So you'll have to pay for it, but it's a smoking deal. On Patreon, it's like $7 and you get every model I've ever made, which is 850 something at this point. All right, I think we're pretty much set. I'm gonna do a quick look over this asset library to see if there's anything I wanted to tack on. I don't think so. No. I'm gonna look at the weapons really quick in case I maybe want to give him a dagger or something, or maybe a fancier cane than what I had in mind. I don't think so. It never hurts to look. It's so easy for me to look at all of these, so I might as well just pop him up, give it a look. All right, where do I have this cane hidden? There it is. Oh, I very helpfully labeled it nice cane. Very good. All right. Gonna put a nice gradient on here because that's my favorite thing to do, to add just a little bit of interest. And then maybe a little bit of a jeweled top here. Kind of liking this pink as an accent for this model. I want it to be about hip height. Looks good. I think these are all the pieces that I needed to have here. K9 asks, do you use a custom matte cap, by the way? Love how dark your matte cap makes your ambient occlusion. I do not. My matte cap is skin shade 4, and then I manually do the ambient occlusion through preferences. I believe it's preferences. I do it so quickly, so when I think about it, I can't remember where it is. It's render, duh. Render preview AO, and I can turn it on and off. So if you look up right now, you'll actually see it turning on and off, and I can adjust the quality and the intensity. I usually have it around 50. Just makes everything so much easier to see. All right, let me skim through my references here and remember what pose I had in mind. All right, I have an idea here. Let's get started. So for the posing process, I kind of prep first by looking through all of my subtools. And then usually I merge like groups, but if I have different subdivision levels I want to keep, I never merge them down. You can always reconstruct, but I never trust that, so. I'm gonna keep these potions on his coat a separate piece because the belt is gonna move independently from his coat. I can merge the buttons and the ascot though. Thank you, Xander, again for reminding me what this thing is called. Same with all these little button details, the shoulder straps. There we are. Again, none of this is necessary for posing, it just kind of helps keep things a bit tidier. Right now I'm grabbing those little buttons, making sure they're pinned down as well. Excellent. All right, I'd say that he's ready to pose. Last thing I can do is pin his collar down. There we go. And again, this just makes it easier when I'm going through, and you'll see right now when I start this posing process, I hide a lot of subtools to select very specific areas at a time, and that's just easier when I have multiple tools I can go through quickly. Kaden says, oh sweet, yeah, I use Skin Shade 4 mostly too, so I was confused. Forgot about turning on AO. Yeah, it helps a lot. Having ambient occlusion on, highly, highly recommend. All right, like usual, I find it easiest if I pose from the hips up. I'm gonna lean them back a little bit. I think having kind of like this chest puffed out look will be really fun. Again, he's a con artist. He's really got to sell this product here. And he knows it doesn't work. So there's a lot of confidence that goes with this. As I pose, I turn perspective on and off, just to kind of make sure the feet are level, and also kind of refresh my eyes as I work through the pose. Posing used to be one of my least favorite parts to do, and now it's probably my favorite because this is where the personality of the model really starts to come through. A great pose can make a good model excellent, but it can also make a model that was previously pretty good mediocre. It's a very, very important part of the sculpting process, and I really encourage you guys not to rush it. Tell my other fellow creators out there. Something that'll make that easier is if you kind of go into your posing process with the mindset that this is just the first iteration. I find breaking it down into steps helps me a lot. And then I don't spend as much time like tweaking it, trying to make it perfect. That's a really easy way to waste a lot of time. I'll also go with the move brush every now and then, kind of make some little soft adjustments and tweaks. All right, his knees here are showing that they're at pretty different angles, which is making this look weird. Or not angles, but heights. And they should still largely be the same height. So I'm gonna go ahead and smush those around and make sure they're on the same plane. That's better. Again, they can be on different planes, but I don't want them to be too far off. Oh, Pan Dragon's here. Hello and welcome. Today I'm sculpting a Lizardfolk snake oil salesman. Having a lot of fun with this con artist so far. Gone through quite a bit of changes. Again, I was trying to make this fedora work, because that's what the requester had asked for, but it was really just looking more adventurer, so I went with this little funny bowler hat instead. For most animal humanoids I do, I try to have the main shot not be like straight on, because it's just not a very flattering angle for them because they have that long snout. So I always try to have it them looking a little off to the side. Mark is here. Hey Mark, looking great. Thank you so much. So right now I'm being really careful not to have any of these odd, harsh lines happen. It's really important that the side of this head has this really nice, soft, continuous line. And why is that so important? It just makes it look nicer. It's kind of like directing the eye. I also think dropping his mouth so it's slightly open would be nice. Yeah, let's go ahead and smush his nose up a bit there. All right, both of his arms need to drop back down. And I'm also gonna need to tilt his hips one way or another. I'm gonna grab in between the buttons here. Very nice. Now I'm going to hide his vest entirely. That way it doesn't deform at the shoulder when I go ahead and pose this. For organic transformations, I like to use a transpose line, but you absolutely don't have to. The gizmo works just fine. I just find this a little quicker. I plan to have this arm hanging pretty lazily, and it's going to be loosely sitting on top of his cane. Again, he's an experienced con man. He's been doing this for a while. He doesn't feel like he needs to sell it that hard. And who knows, maybe he actually enchanted one of these potions to have a temporary effect. He's just slightly exaggerating how long it will actually last. As you can see, I'm changing the angle of this a lot. I'm always cycling through to make sure it looks good from all angles. I check in with the same shot the most, I kind of call it the alpha shot, but it's important to work through the entire model. His hand's looking a bit goofy from the front, but I'll handle that later. For now, let's go ahead and get this cane size and placed in his hand. Yeah, the hand is just so tilted off to the side, it looks really silly. Let's go ahead and fix that. Oh, I see what happened. Just got a little bend right here. Shoop. There we go. That's nicer. Again, I don't want to worry about fine-tuning it too much. We're trying to get the main bulk of the pose done here. Painted Dragon says, I can just see him standing in front of his cart that opens up when selling his wares, but the cart also can be folded away quickly to make a hasty getaway. Exactly. Perfectly describing what I'm going for here. I actually already have a traveling cart I made a while ago that would work fantastic with this model. I might need to remind my patrons of where that's at when I release this. Again, I like to hide the entire vest when moving the shoulder. That way I'm not getting any odd deformations at the shoulder, and if I do, they're really easy to clean up. So on this other hand, he's either just gonna be like gesturing off to the side, presumably at his cart or his wares behind him, but I'll probably also put a potion in this hand as well. Whoops, his hand kind of ended off to the side there, didn't it? Let's go ahead and put his hand back on his forearm. There we go. For these sleeves, I'm going to go back through with a move brush and make some big indents in them, and this will just kind of give an illusion of depth, while still being very 3D printable. To do that, I'm using the move brush with Alt held down, so it's actually moving material away from the camera instead of towards it. I'm also going to rotate this entire arm upwards just a touch. Might even just grab the gizmo and just push it upwards. As I pose, I kind of move around all my subtools as much as possible to reinforce whatever direction of the model. It's also known as like the line of action. So there's kind of like this curve to the side here that I can see. So I'm trying to reinforce that throughout the entire model. All right, this is looking better. It's getting there. Thank you guys for hanging out on a Monday morning, afternoon, wherever you guys are at. Usually Monday streams are a bit quieter. We've actually had quite a few people hanging out this entire time. It's always nice. Unsurprisingly, Fridays are usually my most popular. Because I work for myself, it's really no issue to pick what time that I work. Ricky and I used to do it, so Monday, Tuesday were our days off instead of like a normal Saturday, Sunday like everyone else. I'm toying with doing that idea again now that I'm streaming. As of now, there's no changes to my live stream schedule, but I've been toying with the idea. If you guys have a strong preference either way, feel free to let me know. I think this leg right here needs to be pushed farther to the left. So I'm gonna turn off perspective, hide the tail, and grab this leg right here. Again, going in with my transpose line. Also, this foot got a little push forward. Let's go ahead and scoot that back just a touch. There we are. It's a small difference, but really helps the flow of the model. Roy says, I appreciate streams like this as I play them in the background while I work. Yeah, I think that's what most people are doing, which I think is really neat. I just like the idea that there's all these people all around the world, because I know some of you guys from the United States, some of you guys are in the UK, usually like a sprinkling from Australia. And it's just cool that we're all kind of hanging out, but apart. I don't know, it's neat. It's a cozy vibe for sure. It also feels cool that I'm kind of like the epicenter of it all. All right, this pose is looking pretty nice. I want to push it a little further, and to do that, I want to twist his entire ribcage here upwards just a bit more. I also want to cinch in his waist here just to give a stronger silhouette. could also rotate his head just a touch more. There we are. His neck is getting a little too long, so I'm gonna go ahead and bring it down just a little bit. Also got a bit of a funny angle happening right here, so let's go ahead and smooth this out as well. Much better. Really looking for a soft, continuous curve all the way around. Very nice. I'm going with my trim dynamic brush and flattening his head a little bit so we have a nicer, flatter plane here. Really lean into more of that lizard look. Now I'm doing a careful selection here, kind of in the middle of his chest, and that's just to ensure that everything rotates where it should. Now I can do a nice big mask over everything one more time and see if I can offset that weight with his right shoulder. Making a lot of adjustments right now. I might even run back through, undo a couple of these, and just make sure that all the adjustments I made are in line with making improvements, as opposed to just making changes for the sake of making changes. When I was new to 3D modeling, I would keep making changes so much in the posing phase that I'd kind of just end up cycling through multiple different poses without realizing it. As I mentioned a little earlier in the stream, I used to hate posing. This was my least favorite part, and it's just because I wasn't good at it. But after a lot of careful attention and seeing where all that time was going, I've improved immensely. I think it's crazy I can even finish a model on live stream now. Just a few years ago, I could have never imagined being able to do that. And that's for a lot of reasons too. Live streaming used to take a lot of my mental energy, kind of felt like putting on a performance the entire time, which is true to some extent, but I'm a lot more relaxed on camera now, and so it doesn't really bother me very much. A lot of times I just find myself enjoying hanging out. Mark says, do you and your hubby 3D print yourselves? Any recommendations on printers? Oh yes, everything we do is 3D printing, so we 3D print a lot. Currently we have a Bamboo Labs X1C, so X1 carbon for our FDM, and for our resin we have a Saturn S Olegu, so Olegu Saturn S. They're both fantastic, I really enjoy them. Any cubic is fine for resin printers as well. I just find that their customer support isn't as nice, and they haven't been as easy for me to work with. Olegu has been very supportive of creators like me, and they actually sent me the printer I use now for free, and then it just genuinely became my favorite printer anyway, so big win-win for sure. That's a very good, very, very good question. I'm thinking about making a little pinned list in here of all the resources that I use at some point, but as of now I've just been so focused on making models and live streaming. Gosh, isn't he fun? I think I need to raise his elbow up a bit. Let's bring this out just a touch. Yeah, I'd say this model is a pretty big success. Pretty darn happy with it. I'll be making quite a few adjustments to the tail here. Just adding more material and making sure it looks more intentional. As of now, it's kind of just a placeholder. It's also a bit too long. But yeah, any more questions about 3D modeling, 3D sculpting, what software I use, what 3D printers I use, feel free to ask away. I love answering. I've been doing this for a long time, so I have a lot that I can share. Alright, now that we're done with all the main adjustments here, we're going to go back into our subtools by going to T-pose sub-T, and this will take all the deformations that I did and put them back onto my subtools. Mark says, excellent, thank you. You are very welcome. Alrighty. So whenever you pose, there's usually some areas that you need to resculpt, as you can see. Got kind of some weird deformations happening here. That's just a really hard crease that happened. So I'll go with my different subdivision levels and I will gently smooth those out. Nothing some smushing around with the move brush can't fix. Alright, that's been smushed accordingly. Alright, let's go ahead and place his tail in the center where it belongs. And then I can kind of decide how I want to pose this later. There we are. One of my favorite ways to pose tails is to use bend curve. So let's go ahead and do that. So what bend curve does is it places a bunch of like adjustable nodes down the center. There you go. So now it only starts off with 2. But if you click and drag on this little cone right here, you get more points you can bend. I like to use as few nodes as possible to bend, so you don't get any weird deformations. I think the tail should sweep to the left. You can also grab these little white cones here to either rotate or inflate. It's just a really good, powerful tool. But you have to be careful that you don't end up getting things too distorted looking. I think I want it to curve this way. It's really not wanting to do that. I think I'm wanting a little too much of this tail. It's supposed to be pretty, there we go. It's supposed to be pretty stiff. we go. Everybody wins. I got my move brush at a very high intensity to kind of scoot this back. It's a little too long right here. That didn't work super well, so instead what I'm going to do is grab the mask brush, mask a small section, go with my transpose line, and manually scoot that back. Much better. So much of ZBrush and like successful sculpting is just using the right tool for the job. Roy says, do you paint any of the prints? Yes, I do. Not as frequently as I should, but I think we all can relate to that. Also, if there is a print near you, care to show it? Please, only if near you. I don't want to distract from the sculpting. I never paint mine, but I'm always tempted. Oh, goodness, I have so many. So many. Let's do a brief little detour here. All right, I'll be right back because I have a bunch of them off camera. Alright, I'm back. I'm not even sure which ones I grabbed, just kind of grabbed a big handful. I'm also going to briefly adjust my webcam here, so I'm really big. And let's share some, y'all. Let's see, this first one here, see if my camera cooperates, is this alligator sypactyl, I think it's called. Again, these are really small. You can kind of see how detailed they are. My camera, it's doing the best that it can. So there's that one. I also have this aquatic leopard that I sculpted a couple months ago. It's hard to see on this camera, but essentially it has a bunch of like waves and like water texture. There we go. My camera really wants to focus on my face, and I'm like, that is your job usually, but not right now. I love this one. This is like this eldritch blood hag. It was pretty vague on the description. They kind of let me just make my own design. So that came out really cool. And then I'll share one more. Two more. This is like a orc ronin. It's like a wandering samurai, but kind of like in this traditional, not quite like a, oh, what are those robes called? Kimono, but it's obviously not that. I think it's back to the Y. I can't remember what it's called for men. And then last but not least is another scary looking hag I kind of sculpted recently. I don't know if you guys can tell on camera, but her mouth is open. She's actually like screaming. I love how her fingers came out. They're so small and they really look nice still. So yeah, those are some that, as you can tell, none of them are painted. Again, I would like to paint more, but I just haven't. Taylor says, you're inspiring me to make a huge collection of fun CAD models 3D printing. You should. It's such a good time. It really is. Roy said, wow, love all of those. Great detail. Amazing. Well, if you are interested in them, in the description of this, I have my Patreon. I'll actually link it anyway. If you want just individual models, that's also a thing that I do. That's on my mini factory, but it's such a better deal just to go on my Patreon. Even if you don't like subscriptions, just like jump in, subscribe for a month, download as much as you can, and then dip. I'd like if you hung out and came back later because I release new stuff like every day, but I totally understand. And my mini factory, you have to buy each model individually, and obviously that's much more expensive. I think each model individually is $3, or you can spend $7 and get 800. So, all right, I'm gonna make myself small again, and there we go. All right, but yeah, that was our brief little mini showcase. Royce, you saying that really inspires me to make that a part of the stream. Maybe I'll do like a 5-minute break somewhere around like the 2-hour point, and I can kind of show you guys what they look like 3D printed, because that is the whole point of this. I do love hanging out with you guys, but ultimately I'm supposed to talk about my business, and I kind of forget to do that sometimes. Roy says, I'll check them out. Thank you. At the very least, you can actually follow my Patreon for free. I do release free models about once a week or so on Patreon too, so it's kind of worth lingering. Or just join streams. I also share the model free here. See, this is what I'm talking about. I'm not great on the business side. That's where my husband comes in. Thank you, husband. He's the other side of M3M. All right, let me scoot forward here a little bit. Scoot. And then readjust my camera and stuff. There we go. Yeah, that was a nice little break. Kind of refreshes my eyes as I go back through here now and adjust all these little areas and details. Taylor says, I think you should show the 3D prints like this every stream. Okay, yeah, good. I was thinking the same thing. I don't know, I kind of forget to do it. I'll make a note for that. Yeah, I've been wanting to break up my streams in kind of different sections. Like maybe I'll have like a 2-minute like Q&A section where I just let you guys flood with questions. I can answer all that. And then I can follow that up with some 3D prints and stuff. I think that'd be a really good time. If people are just joining and they're like, wait, you just show 3D prints? I want to see. Let me know, because it's actually pretty easy for me to make my camera bigger and just show it to you. When I first started streaming just a couple weeks ago, I was so like stream incompetent. It was so hard for me to like even move screens and like figure all that out. But as of now, I'm getting pretty quick at it. So I don't mind the little breaks. Thank you again, Royce. That was a really nice little stream refresher. All right, I definitely need to put these little potions on the other side of his hat because as of now, they're not visible from the alpha shot, and that's really where I want them. So I'm gonna go ahead and select those, mirror. Come on, ZBrush. My pivot point is in the middle of space, so I need to reset it really quick. Whoop, there we go. And throw these on the other side. But yeah, I love showing 3D prints because I do them no matter what. Everything that I share on screen here and I sculpt live, I'm always 3D printing it. And it'd be kind of fun if I started the stream probably with the print of what I did from last week. Because as we're talking right now, everything that I streamed and sculpted last week is getting printed right now. I do them in big batch. And by me, I mean my husband. He actually takes care of that now. Going in here and adding some more details on his face is something I definitely want to do. Want to be careful not to add too much to each side because this is out of symmetry currently. So to add these little folds and details, I'm going in with damp standard and standard, kind of interchangeably. There we go. Very nice. Go. Kind of just bulking up some of these details. Again, paint cachers I like to call them. Taylor says, how much does the underlying polygons matter before applying subdivision levels in sculpting? It matters a decent amount. I really like to have it pretty even quads here, as you can tell. So if I go to this is my lowest subdiv and this is my highest. But depending, I'll do like a quick and dirty Dynamesh, which will put more polys where there's more detail and then subdivide from there. You can also just mask an area that you like and then subdivide only that one section. But yeah, if you have really goofy stretched out polygons and then you just subdivide a bunch of times, it's still gonna come out pixelated when you sculpt on top. Poly count management is probably one of the hardest things that my students have to learn in the beginning, but after some practice, they get a hang of it. I know I have some lizard scale textures. Oh, scales, lizards. Let's see if I like it. I don't mind it, but the stroke is way too short, so let's go ahead and adjust that. I'm going to increase my lazy mouse step. There we go. Make the brush even larger, and then have backface mask turned on. And I'm doing backface mask to make sure that's not going to clip through the other side of the mesh. And this is really just to add some fine details here. I might need to just do this by hand. I actually like how it affects the bottom of the mesh, but that's not really the point here. I do like that. Those are some nice paint catchers. I'm gonna do the same treatment to the sides of his jaw, but being kind of careful because these little spikes, scales here actually want to be really spiky, which is not really what I want. I'll actually change this to drag rectangle and see how it does. Ooh, much better. I might want to just go back. Yeah, we're gonna undo all of that stuff on his neck, and I'm gonna go in and do it manually. Oh, but first it's subdividing. Please don't subdivide at 25 million points. There we go. There we go, it's a nice little bit of detail. And I need to be really careful like where the camera's facing to prevent any big deformations here. Kind of scoot that up. I'm looking at how it blends right here. It's pretty big and bulky, but I don't mind it because this can be such a small print. Does it not want to be bigger than that? So what an odd brush. Huh. Let me check my activity monitor. It's being a little weird right now, and that usually means that ZBrush has a process that's just not stopping in the background. That does happen sometimes. Taylor says, how often do you apply remeshing? And how well does it maintain sharp corners? It does not maintain sharp corners at all unless you tell it to, which you can use a crease brush for that. Now, as far as how often I do it, it really just depends on what part of this process that I'm in. When I'm early on and finding the shapes, I remesh like constantly, but as I become more confident in the shapes and add more detail, I don't remesh at all. And just to reiterate, remeshing is different than, looks like it's just OBS. Okay, remeshing is different than subdividing. I mean, I guess they're in the same like category. This is being so odd. I wonder if it has to do with brush size. So what I'm confused about is my click and drag. It should just keep expanding the mesh, and it kind of doesn't want to unless it's in a certain direction, which is really strange. I haven't seen a brush behave like that before, really. Yeah, it's like right there, it did it no problem. When ZBrush starts acting really, really odd, two things you can do is you can go to your brush palette and click reset all brushes, or you can just reopen the program. Either is fine. If I just click and drag with my mouse. No, it doesn't like that either. Weird. It's really punishing me for not sculpting this by hand. Goodness. Right now I'm experimenting with like different draw sizes because none of that should affect it, but it's being really dumb. K9 says, what graphics monitor do you use, by the way? I'm running the Huon Canvas Pro 22 from 2018 still. I think I had the exact same tablet for a long time and I quite liked it. I use the Cintiq. It's very expensive. Do not buy it unless you really, really sculpt a lot. Otherwise you do not need it. Even then, I don't need it either. I like it. Right now I'm going through kind of adding this little scale brush texture just to add some more visual interest in some spots. On the sides of his hands, and I'll probably add this on his tail as well. As of now, his tail is very, very low res. A lot of good questions for right now, guys. I like it. Oh, it's probably about time that I put one more stamp on here. I really haven't minded slowly filling up my canvas here. Again, if it looks too cluttered on your guys' side, just let me know. Again, I have this gigantic 2-foot screen in front of me, so I've got plenty of room over here to see. I'm fixing these fabric folds right here, right by his zipper, because it's really, they're different on both sides. There we go. That's better. I also want some more fabric folds on the inside of his slacks here. That did not work. Let's do it from a better angle. There we go. That's nicer. Much better. Very fancy. Canine says, sometimes double tapping dynamic fixes that for me. Okay, yeah, I think I even said I was gonna try that and then I ended up not. I've had that problem before, and believe me, I've had all kinds of fun glitches in ZBrush over the years. But I don't want to give ZBrush too hard of a time. It hasn't crashed even once for me today, so it's been a pretty good day. Just about done touching up the final details here, and soon I'll move into post-processing for 3D printing, and then finally sharing that 3D printable file with you guys for free. If you're watching in the future, it's not free. You'll need to look at my Patreon. I don't say this enough, but if you're already a supporter on Patreon, I know a handful of you guys here are. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. It literally makes all of this possible. Otherwise, I would not be doing this. I'd be working as an engineer, which also cool, but not the goal right now. Right now I'm adding some quick details on this tail. There we go, just some nice ridges to catch some paint. And then I'll reshape the tail a touch here by using the standard brush. And to do this, I'm just adding some volume on the sides. Another ridge straight down the back. There we go. And the front. Gonna run through the entire thing lightly with the pinch brush. add a little flick to the end of his tail. To do that, I'm just using a careful mask and a 3D gizmo. All right, he's looking very dapper. Not trustworthy, but dapper. I think I'm gonna mirror and have these little potions on the left side of the model instead. I like the idea that maybe he has all of the potions on one side so he can easily grab them with his dominant hand, and he puts all of the coins right on these pouches. Then Taylor asks, what about curly eyebrows? I'm reluctant to put any hair on him since he's a lizard, but that does sound really fun. And I mean, again, this is a lizard man. It's a fantasy world. I can really do whatever I want. This has been a rippin' live stream. I am so happy with everything that I've gotten done. I'm definitely gonna need to adjust these little fingernails. They're just, everything is so long right here. Don't want to deal with 3D printing all of that. Most of it is touching, which is great, but this needs a lot more thickness added to it, and so I'll use my back face mask and move brush trick. I'm just going to lower the subdiv and let's just pose the fingers a touch. There we go. More of like this round shape, yeah? There we go. That hand looks much more natural now. Also going to go ahead and take one of these potions and stick it in his hand. That fits quite nicely. I might buy something from this guy. I feel like he's looking somewhat believable. I wouldn't pay very much for it, but maybe I'd try something. think he just needs eyelids. This is something that I really should have done when I was still in symmetry, but I can still do it. To do that, I just duplicate the eyeball, and then I go in with close holes and Z-remesher. And then I inflate the bottom and the top section. We're going to color them the same as him, perhaps just a bit darker. It's so funny because it's a really, really small detail, but it matters. Get more of that sinister look. Yeah, how's that? It's a small detail, but it really needs to be there. I've had people ask me on stream before, like, why I work in symmetry, and this is exactly why. Because otherwise I just end up doing the exact same thing twice. It's just not very efficient. I might go ahead and give him kind of like a goatee here with scales. I think this is turning out really nice. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. It's been a really good time. So you can, right now, this has actually been a lot of fun where I kind of keep a stamp of my progress throughout the stream. I am curious what you guys think about this. I know most of you guys are working, but if you have a moment, I'd appreciate if you guys looked up and kind of tell me what you think about this. So on the far right here is now this pretty much finished model. But I've been kind of keeping a live timeline of all the stamps and the progress. So on the far left here is this base mesh I started with. Probably got some clothes on him, changed his proportions, a pose and some details, and now this is where we're at currently live. I just think it makes the stream maybe a lot more readable, especially for people that are kind of just tuning in. And then especially for you guys that have been here since the beginning of the stream, but let's say that you actually, worked, because I know a lot of you guys are at work focusing, and maybe you missed 20 minutes or so, you can kind of just easily look up now and get a quick recap on what's going on. I think it's a fun point here. My only concerns of becoming a little cluttered or maybe unreadable, but that's just a thought. I don't think it looks cluttered or unreadable, especially because I have it working from left to right. It's kind of just how you naturally read. Royce says, I love this format. I wouldn't want to change it. Okay, cool, Royce. I know this is your first stream, but this is actually the first time I've done this format. So what I'll do is I'd actually just pin just one and I'd intermittently change it out. but I definitely think this is a lot more enjoyable. So sweet. I'm really glad this was your first stream. You got to see the best version right away. I appreciate the feedback too. I found that you guys are largely on the same page, or even just one person being like, yes, I like this. Like, I'm pretty confident that all of you guys are gonna like this format. Oh, something I didn't think about either is I also teach how to 3D sculpt. If you're interested in that, there's a link in the description, but that's not my point. I have a lot of students from my teaching program that watch my live streams and revisit them. This would probably make it a lot easier for them to kind of see where things change. So if they were to scrub the video after the fact, because it's like 2-3 hours, it'll be easier for them to see what's happening and when. So that's helpful. Mark B says, yes, I like seeing the different levels of progress. Okay, cool. Well, I'm happy to share this. So I will keep that in mind. And thank goodness I have a tablet that's 2 feet across, because that makes it much easier for me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to offer this. All right, this has been an absolute blast. There's still areas, the thing with art is there's always areas you can rework and improve. And at some point you have to, when you're a professional, you have to be like, okay, this is a business. I cannot spend 3 days on one model. I mean, you can, but that's not my business model. This is definitely excellent as it is. And I'm at that like 80-20 point, you know, where it's like, if I do another, like, oh my gosh, the 80-20 rule is just like, it applies to, like, it can apply to lots of things, but essentially it's like your initial effort can make up for most of the actual results. And so if you start like obsessing and fine-tuning on details, you're gonna see diminishing returns. That's like the short of it. Again, that can actually mean a lot of different things and it doesn't always apply, but I find it applies a lot to my work. All right. I want to adjust a couple of these packs just to look like they're more affected by gravity, and that's pretty much it. Then we're going to move into post-processing, and that's because I 3D print these. So post-processing just means that I'm making sure the mesh is a solid piece and it's not a bunch of points. Like right now we're almost at 5 million points. You can 3D print something that has that many points, but it's just a really big file for no reason, and it makes your slicer take forever. Alrighty, that's about all I wanted to adjust. Maybe pull these seams on the sleeves to be a little sharper. Pretty happy with this. K9 said, did you sculpt his base on the stream before today? Did I miss that part? No, I don't think he missed that part. This is pretty much what I started with exactly. I had poly painted it just before the stream started. But no, this very, very leftmost piece, that's where the stream started. So you didn't miss anything. But going from this guy to changing his proportions and making it a lizard instead of just a kobold, that was on stream. So I didn't end up adding the curly eyebrows like Taylor suggested, but I did end up going through and improving his eye area because of it. And now he has eyelids, and I think the model reads a lot stronger. So, like always, thank you, Taylor. You're always suggesting really wonderful stuff. He's almost looking a little snake-like with this little point on his nose. I don't mind it. All right, we're at that point of the stream where I needed to call this model done. Let's get to post-processing, shall we? I might even make this my new splash page. So the splash page is just what I call the thumbnail for the end of the video, essentially. This would probably make a lot more sense for people. Also, for my fellow 3D artists, right now I'm dealing with the lighting setup. I like to have two lights kind of pinned at the top left here, and I tend to have one just be pure white and the other one is an accent light. There we go. Brighten things up a bit. And then to screenshot, you can do document, export. If I have a MacBook, I just do Command Shift number 4 and I click and drag. Boom. That will be the splash page for this one. I like this a lot. Oh, I also recommend for my other like fellow creators and 3D artists, it's really worth editing your images just a little bit even. I'll go through here, grab my adjustments, just click auto levels and then bump up the sharpness. It doesn't take much time and it really increases the readability. I also like to bump the exposure and the contrast. There we go. Now I have that image saved and let's move on to post-processing. For post-processing, I like to work from the bottom or the top down, but I want to make sure his feet are on the same level first. And the reason why I care about that is because this is actually going to be a 3D printable model, and I'd like for him to fit on his base, and I offer a no base version for people that like to use their own. So I need to make sure this is flat so that they print him without a base. They can still do whatever they want with him. Here we go. I'm not even sure what percentage of my patrons use their own bases or not, but even if it's not a high percentage that use their own custom bases, I like for it to be an option. All right, we're looking really good. Let's do a quick little 360 here of him to make sure that there's no odd issues. He's very wide in his chest, maybe a little wider than I would have wanted, but that's fine. It's happened. He's a little lean back, just how I wanted him early in the stream. I'm really glad that I accomplished that. All right, lovely. Oh, how does his hat fit? Because I kind of made it a little crooked on purpose. We're gonna inflate this edge to be a little more consistent. Yeah, it's almost not touching his head on this side, and I don't like that. So let me just grab my move brush at a high strength and just scoot it on down there. Before, after. It doesn't really change a ton on the model, but now it doesn't look goofy on one side. All right, we're looking good, guys. Thank you guys for hanging out, and if you stay tuned in just for a bit longer, I'm gonna have this 3D printable model for sharing it for free with y'all. If you don't have a 3D printer, I guess I don't know what you'd be doing with this model, but if you wanted to sculpt on it yourself and play around with it, you're welcome to, of course. And if you're interested in learning how to make your own characters and creatures and even scatter terrain, I do teach how to do that as well. If you're more interested in that, I have that link pinned in the chat. My mentorship program is a little different than most. It's much more focused on me directly helping you one-on-one. I do have videos that I've created that I use as guides for you guys, but for the most part, it's talking with me one-on-one. I used to offer just my classes by themselves where you didn't have to talk with me, but I found that every time without fail, my students that would try to learn by themselves instead of just taking the mentorship that was with me, they didn't even perform half as well. They really struggled, and they tend to just give up after about a month or so. So That's a reason why I don't have just my tutorials available, like in the void by themselves. I have a couple available on my main YouTube channel here, but that's really designed more for people that are already familiar with ZBrush. And if you don't want to learn how to 3D sculpt, you just want my models, obviously that's available too. That's also in the description. The whole reason why I learned how to 3D sculpt in the first place is just so I'd have more stuff to 3D print. It took about, I don't know, maybe 2 months of printing other people's stuff before I was like, I want to print my own stuff. I actually started off with these little like cat beans. They're pretty much like little cylindrical orbs that look like cats. It was pretty simple, but I had no idea that those little cat beans would eventually become Lizardmen and D&D characters. I've always been super into fantasy, but I never expected it to become a career, that's for sure. Oh, I think someone new is here. Eric Aiden. Howdy, this model looks slick. Thank you so much, Eric. I'm pretty sure that you're new, so hi and welcome. I'm just about done with this guy. I'm not sure if you have a 3D printer, but if you do, I am sharing this model for free at the end of the stream. Usually my stuff isn't free. I just do it on the stream because there's only a handful of you guys here. Okay, honestly, more than 10 is actually quite a bit, but I'm happy to share because you guys are here supporting the stream. If you're watching this in the future or lurking, the model's not free anymore, sorry. All right, this is going super good. No major mesh issues. We're just remeshing along, no problem. I pretty much never have any like catastrophic mesh issues. I've been doing this for 5 years and I've sculpted nearly, I'm just gonna round up. I keep saying 850, but over the years, I definitely sculpted more than 1,000. I'm pretty confident in my process here, and I 3D print all of them myself as well. Eric says, yeah, oh nice. Okay, cool. Eric says, I just got into printing a few months ago. Well, welcome to the hobby, how cool. I know 3D printing can be a lot. If it's going smoothly for you, that's fantastic. Most people struggle quite a bit because it's not just as easy as click and print, unfortunately. If you need help, I'm happy to help with that too. Bill says, good afternoon. Hi, Bill. Sorry I missed all the fun. He looks awesome. Nice to see it in color too. Yeah, I've started to color my models on stream as well. You guys seem to like that a lot, and me too. I think it's a lot of fun. Again, I used to color all my models, but somewhere around my 400th model, I didn't need it anymore. It's like a guide for myself to create the character. But I have the skill set, so happy to do it. Let's see, it looks like a couple of these buttons did not attach. Is that because they're not touching, or is that because, yeah, there's a small gap here. So I like to move in with move and backface mask and just scoot them on back. Whoop. Whoop. There we go. Excellent. Now when we remesh, it will all be touching. I'm gonna go ahead and merge the torso as well, and so we can make this one solid piece here. Eric continues, oh sweet, yeah, I started with resin, but just got FDM. It's a bit intimidating for sure, gonna be a bit to learn. Yeah, I actually did the opposite. I went from FDM to resin. FDM is definitely harder. It depends on what kind of printer you got. You already bought a printer, but I highly, highly recommend Bamboo Labs. I know they're expensive, but they're so nice, and they make it much, much easier. My first printer ever was a Prusa, and Prusa is very fancy and up there as well. However, I got a Prusa printer pretty early on, and I actually got a defective one. I was able to fix it myself. Essentially, so the 3D printer, the hot end will bump into the sides to hit that sensor to say where it's at on the axis. Well, the bump was not touching that sensor. So I had to put a dot of hot glue so that way it was extruded enough so they would actually connect. But I didn't know that because I didn't know what I was doing. Luckily, I was actually going through my engineering schooling, so I was pretty used to troubleshooting and figuring things out. But it definitely made the initial process a bit frustrating for sure. And I want to be very clear, Prusa printers are not defective. This was like, I bought one of the very, very early printers that they had released. They've been around for many more years now. They're also excellent. All right. Just doing the last bit of merging here, then we'll put a base on him and he'll be good to go. Taylor says, do you ever UV map your models? I do very occasionally, and I only UV map my models when I am applying a texture across it using a surface noise map and I don't want deformation. So let's say that I am doing like a brick well. Bricks are a hard surface, so I can't have them curving and deforming around the sides of the cylinder. So I'd UV map the cylinder, throw my seams on there, and then I can have a lot more control over it. So I pretty much never do that. It's pretty rare that I need to do that. It does happen though. Eric says, man, I've heard great things about them, but I've already bought a Lego. Okay, a Lego is also great. I personally have a soft spot for a Lego because, well, they were one of my first big clients. Like, I don't know if I talked about this enough on stream, but like, a Lego actually hired me to sculpt a chess set of demons, and they paid me very well, and they sent me one of their best 3D printers and like 5 liters of resin. So I was very happy with them. They also paid me up front, which is very nice as an artist. I'd have to like hunt them down to pay me. That happens more than you think. Oh my goodness, I could fill 10 live streams with commissioned horror stories, but I just don't like to be negative, but they are really entertaining. So if you guys are interested in that, maybe I'll talk about that in my next stream. But anyway, Lego is fantastic, great company, very kind to their artists, and just they make good stuff. My resin printer's a Lego. I have a Saturn S. Taylor says, I'm curious what the UV tools are like in here. They're fine. They're fine. I'm not sure, like, I don't have a reference point for anything else, but it's definitely not like great. It's fine. I just say that because sometimes it's been a lot of like drawing the same thing over and over again to like try to get it to follow the lines that I want, and then it'll just not sometimes. I also wasn't UV mapping stuff that I had like manually redone the topology on, so that's also part of the issue. I briefly worked for Titancraft. So Titancraft is very similar to Hero Forge, where you can quickly build 3D printable minis. They're fantastic. I worked for them for the better part of a year, but ultimately I stepped away from it because I was living in California still, and it just really, I was not getting paid enough to sustain a life in California. It's also partly why I moved across the country to Tennessee. Also, it's just beautiful out here, and I have a horse and I want lots of critters, and it's harder to do that in California. But anyway, when I was working for Titancraft, I used UV maps all the time. Eric says he has got a Saturn IV Ultra. Ooh, and a Neptune 4 Plus. Oh damn, you got a nice setup going, cool. Happy with the Saturn and have a lot of excitement for the Neptune. Very cool, very cool. All right, Eric, I'm gonna give you like the hard pitch here because you were like right up my exact audience of what I do this for. I insist that you either look at my Patreon, you don't have to pay for anything, just look at it, maybe be a free person, or subscribe on YouTube, because you're exactly the kind of audience I create this stuff for, and any of like your feedback or tuning in is very, very helpful for me. Obviously, all my lurkers hanging out, I love you guys too. You guys are my people. I am a fellow lurker. If I am not the person on camera, literally streaming, I do not interact anywhere. I'm like in 15 different Discord servers, and I have talked in 0 of them. I'll leave reactions occasionally. Pretty bold. But that's it. All right, we're at 500,000 points here. Gonna drop to 250 and see how the detail retention looks. He has a lot of little bits and bobs, and I wanna make sure they don't become too pixelated. Again, most people print my stuff for tabletop games, which is like this big. But that being said, I actually have quite a few people that print my stuff like statues. So I'd like to make sure that it's still super high res enough to be friendly for that too. All right, we're all set. He looks fantastic. I'm really happy with this. All right. Let's go ahead and check the mesh integrity. No errors, looking clean. And remesh by union. Just one more time, because it looks like it's mad about something, but I can't figure out where. Again, a few mesh errors is really not the end of the world. You just want to make sure that you're creating your models with integrity. So I don't mean that in the moral sense. I mean like they're solid, there's a lot of thickness on them, that kind of stuff. All right, I'm gonna run through this really quickly with my smooth brush. And it's kind of like an easy, quick and dirty way to detect for holes. That kind of looks like an odd spot right there. That might be where some errors are. Nope, it actually looks fine. So I'm just kind of looking wherever there's kind of like a dense knot of polygons to see if there's any issues there. No, we look really good actually. So I'm gonna decimate a little bit more. And decimate is just bringing the poly count down. I know it sounds fancy. And then Eric, yeah, he laughs, says awesome. I'll definitely check it out. Thanks for letting me hard pitch at you. That's about as business as I can get. That's me out of 10. 10 business. I don't know if I even said it on stream, but my name is Mia. M3DM is actually short for Mia's 3D models, so the more you know. My middle name is Kay, K-A-Y, yes, like the jeweler, so I went by Mia K for a while online, but recently I've been a little more consistent. I use M3DM. No, Eric laughs and says, yeah, absolutely. No, I definitely feel very lucky though. I do quite well for myself. Ricky and I both, it feels good. We are definitely not the starving artist trope by any means. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have a horse. We also have an off-road car. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that at all, but we have a Can-Am Maverick. It's actually what we named our dog after. We have a pug. He's an all-black pug. He turned 3 this year. His name is Maverick, Mav for short. Both of these, by no means, they're luxury hobbies, you know, and it's incredible that we can do that on an artist's salary, so it's a pretty good time. Oh, I see a new subscriber, Vanessa. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for subscribing. I think you're one of my lurkers then. I like it, my people. Taylor says, ZBrush seems to have very good remeshing tools. The one I use either create undesirable artifacts or they break the shape of the model in some way. Oh yeah, the Z-Remesher is just fantastic. Oh, Eric also subscribed. Thank you. I don't usually see, oh, so did Ryan. Goodness, we're on a little roll here, aren't we? Yeah, I feel bad when you guys subscribe and that little message pops up on stream. I don't always see it because I'm staring at my screen. I'm working on getting a little setup in front of me, so I'll have a little like light so I can see. I never miss the chat because the whole window like twitches and it's much more eye-catching than the little whooshies. Yeah. Anyway, thank you guys so much. It's always cool to have more people joining. All right. Before I get more distracted, let's go ahead and copy this tool, get him based, so I can get this model to you guys. I don't share the 3D printable file that's pre-supported on stream because I haven't printed it yet, because I literally just made it. I know it seems obvious, but I feel the need to explain because I always share my pre-supported files. And if you're new to 3D printing, and if you're or don't know what that is, and you're like, pre-supported, what are you talking about? Essentially, when you're 3D printing, let's get a color on here, you can't print stuff floating in the middle of nowhere. So you kind of build like little grid supports on them essentially that break off super easily. Think about like when people are building a house and they have like that frame around it. It's kind of like that. If I were to print something that was like a pyramid, for example, so it tapers up to the top and there's no overhangs, you wouldn't need supports because there's something for the material to keep building on top of. Think about like, I don't know, icing a cake even. All right, so right now I'm just fitting him in here. I have 2 meshes in here already to kind of compare the size. Because again, this is largely intended for my tabletop audience. That being said, again, I have people that print these like 6 inches tall. I love talking about that. I have a couple that supports me on Patreon where they took my aquatic set because I have this beautiful coral reef and they actually printed it for their bathroom decorations, which I just think is the funniest thing. All right, I think he would be in a town square, so I would like to have some cobblestone under him. Where do I have stone? Stone. There we go. Eric says, yeah, you're welcome. Glad I got on YouTube today. Yeah, no kidding, same. And then Taylor asks, have you ever sculpted architectural pieces like brick or stone castle ruins? Oh yes, big yes. Let me take a little brief detour here. Here we go. This is a Kickstarter that I launched this year. It's already over, so if you want these models, you have to go to Patreon. But this is a scatter terrain set, and there's not a single character or creature in this. These are all pieces that I sculpted. Goodness, there's a lot of them. There's like 200 models here or something. So yeah, I do a lot of scattered terrain pieces as well. The reason why you guys don't see me sculpt scattered terrain on stream is simply because they weren't requested. Everything that I sculpt on stream was from a Patreon supporter. So this guy is going to be in someone's D&D campaign. Kind of cool. If people suggested me making terrain, you'll see that on stream. Until then, characters and monsters forever. I did have someone ask for lollipop trees, so I will be sculpting those at some point. However, that will be a really, really quick and easy sculpt because it's just pretty much a spiral mesh. Alrighty, we're going in here, and this is Mesh Mixer. It's kind of just like my final fail-safe check to make sure there's no issues with the mesh. Again, if you guys have been 3D printing for a while, most slicers complain about mesh issues all the time. It doesn't mean your print's gonna fail. Like, see, I have something that it's mad about right here. Not a big deal. I'm just gonna throw it in here, auto repair it, make sure there's no major issues. And export. Almost done here. This guy has a long name. Lizardfolk Snake Oil Salesman. No base. I'm gonna delete that mesh and re-import it, just because it did say it had some things it was mad about, and let's see if there's any actual problems or not. I highly doubt it. But if there is, I have no problem being a little extra thorough. Yeah, it's mad about some of the components on the vest. So something I can do is I'll just put it in here, save, replace, throw it back into ZBrush, give it one more remesh, and then we spit it out. And this is just me being extra careful. It would print just fine as it is. I just like to give some of my like new 3D printers like in the area not giving them a heart attack. They're usually very, very timid when they print and they're worried everything's gonna break their printer. And it makes me laugh, but I totally get it because I've been there too. So I'm going over this with a smooth brush because if there is a big hole, it might hide. Okay, perfect. So there's no holes here. And when I say hole, I mean like quite literally the mesh will like just tear open. I didn't see anything like that, so. We'll go ahead and fix the mesh, close holes, and remesh by union, just to be extra thorough. And then Eric says, imagine a lizard selling snake oil, right? Isn't that so goofy? I love that. My patrons really have the best ideas. All right, looks like this is all cleaned up now. It's never on screen for very long, but if you look, my naming convention is very fancy. It's usually just a different number of A's. Like I have A as my first export, then I have double A as my farmer, and now I've created another version and it's just triple A. My files are a mess. Oh, it's mad that I'm trying to open it while it's exporting. Once I have it on Patreon, obviously everything's properly named, but on my side, I kind of export things like it's chaos. Let's call it ABC. All right. And then I see there's a message from Taylor. I'm gonna look up in just a moment. Why are you not wanting to open this? And why are you exporting STLs? That's not even a thing that you do, ZBrush. ZBrush is being cute with me right now. Taylor says, something I struggle with is deciding on consistent naming system for large model collections. What is your method and how did you decide it? What I do is I simply, like let's say for like my Vikings collection, I have a folder that's scatter terrain, and I have a folder that's my monsters, another folder for characters, and I had another folder for my like gods and goddesses, because I also sculpted like Freya with her chariot cats, and I wanted that separate from like my characters, like my I had a couple of Viking warriors that had like animal suits on them, like bear and wolf skins, and then underneath each of those, I have my pre-supported, my book base versions, all that good stuff. But yeah, I pretty much just have overarching folders with categories. And then underneath that, there we go. Underneath that, everything that fits into it. I find that's been the easiest for people to find what they need. All right, sweet. Not a single error came up. Again, the previous file would have printed just fine. I simply do it so that my supporters do not have a heart attack, because quite a few people that support me on Patreon are brand new to 3D printing, and I do not want to scare them when they see that. And again, the slicer is detecting something correctly when it says there's an error. Unfortunately, it's not able to discriminate what is an error that actually caused a printing issue versus just any disruption in the mess. All right. And then Eric says, is there any other way to do it other than chaotic? I agree. I'm going through my quick saves here to go ahead and grab this model here because we have that really nice splash page. Let's go back just a little bit earlier so that way I still have poly paint. There we go. If you're wondering why this cane here looks really silly, like look how odd and pink that is, like it's all splotchy. When you remesh by union, sometimes you get poly paint issues. But again, 3D printers don't print in color, so it doesn't matter that it's doing this. I simply do it because it's fun to have different colors on the stream. Okay. All right, let me upload this file and I'll be sharing it with you right now. This is the base and the no base version. I do not share the pre-supported file on stream because I haven't had time to print it. And I always test print my pre-supported files before I share them. If you do want my pre-supported files and 850 other models, characters, scatter terrain, that's on Patreon. All right. Bam, there's a free download link. And then Taylor asks, be more clear, I mean the name of the files themselves. Oh, where the variant should be. I always have the name, space, dash, what type it is. So either no base, decorative base, or pre-supported. So there you go. And I've been very consistent with that. I don't do underscores just because I find that sometimes when you're like downloading the files, I get mad. Dashes seem to be safe. And then Taylor asked, but also what is the file itself? The collections of miscellaneous pieces. Should fruits and vegetables be in the same file? Most 3D printable models that I do are not in such discrete pieces. They are completed meshes as themselves. So it'd be a fruit stand. It's very unlikely that I'd have like individual pieces like that, so I don't have to run into that very often. Oliver said, thank you so much. And then Eric is back. He had an ad. Well, either way, that's technically making me money. So thank you for your support. And I just shared that file, Eric. for the free download for this. Let me click on it again, I'm always paranoid that these aren't sharing the way they're supposed to. Yep, that looks good. Lizardfolk Snake Oil Salesman. Very good. And then again, if you want the actual files, and I have a link for all M3DM models, characters, monsters, terrain. Looks like I dropped off my plural halfway through. Whatever. There's that link instead. That is not a free download. That would be supporting me. But you can always lurk. There's definitely a free community join option on Patreon, and I release a free model about once a week there in addition. So there's definitely a way to game this, where if you follow me on enough places and you join enough live streams, you don't have to pay for anything technically. Not my best business pitch, but that's okay. Technically growing an audience is part of it, yeah? All right, I went ahead and clicked, because I do have some control of the ads on my spot, somewhat. YouTube listens about half the time. I put a 10-minute pause on all ads right now, so they shouldn't interrupt you guys. I'm gonna be hanging out just for a little bit now that the stream is complete. And if you guys have any follow-up questions, whether about me personally, art, either Patreon I have, one of them gives you models, one teaches you how to make models. That's my mentorship program. Anything like that, feel free to ask. If not, hang out, have a good time, enjoy the Lizard Man, and hope you guys have a really good Monday. Eric says, thank you so much for the Snake Oil Salesman file. You're welcome. Make sure to pre-support that yourself. And if you don't know how, again, I have them on Patreon. Roy says, thank you for the files. Looking forward to more streams. Awesome. Yeah, I'll be back again tomorrow, 11 a.m. As of now, I sculpt pretty much every day, Monday through Friday, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Yeah, this has been such a good time. Thank you guys for hanging out. Usually my Monday streams are really quiet. Usually we barely break over like, I don't know, 6 people here. But it's been about triple that the whole time. So I think I'm starting to pick up a bit of an audience here, which is really cool. Thanks for being part of it. Who knows, maybe in like a year I'll be famous 3D artist streamer and you'll be able to say I knew her back when. Yeah, we'll see. At best, I'd like to become a small medium streamer. I definitely don't want to have like so many viewers where the chat is just flying the whole time, because I like talking to you guys. So I need it to be slow enough where I can read. Eric says, awesome, I'll try to be here tomorrow. This is really chill. I'm glad, that's kind of what I go for. It's always fun for me too when I have new people join in. Like, there's always new people lurking and hanging out. But new people in the chat's always really cool. And I think today we had 3. Bill asks, what's your average sculpt time if you have to make the majority of the sculpt rather than using pre-made assets? Let's see, it depends how elaborate the asset is. If I have to make a really complex weapon, let's say like it's I recently did like a spectral weapon, so it's like a living sword that's covered in flames. That alone will take me about 30 minutes. But if I'm just sculpting clothes, like brand new suits or jackets and stuff, it doesn't really add that much time, honestly. If I had to sculpt this guy completely from scratch, not using remade assets, let's see how long the stream took. The stream took me 3 hours. If I wasn't streaming, it would take me 3 hours to do it. Sculpting everything on scratch on stream, it'd probably add about 40 minutes. So honestly, not that much. Very good question though. Oliver asks or says, I mostly sculpt on Blender. Do you think I'd still be able to follow your ZBrush courses, mostly for methods and general sculpting tips? I do mostly because if you're talking about the mentorship program specifically, I'm going to talk about your art. I'm going to be really focusing on your forms. So we're talking like primary, secondary, tertiary, silhouette, line of action, overall lay of detail. That kind of stuff transcends any sculpting software that has so much to do with just, not just technique, but like overall model, like finesse and design. So yes, to answer your question. You wouldn't be able to use like ZBrush, but a lot of the more modeling aspects, Blender actually surpasses ZBrush a bit there. Bill says very cool. Thank you. I think we read your question. I guess also and construction would be a big one as well. I'm just really thinking about your question, Oliver. I have teach. Oh my god, I'm having a stroke. I'm gonna drink water. All right, we're gonna talk in correct verb noun agreement. All right, I have taught quite a few students that use Blender exclusively, and they didn't seem to have much of an issue with it. I don't want to oversell. I'm really big on like under promise and over deliver, you know? Eric says, when it comes to mentorship, does someone have to know anything about sculpting at all? No, I designed my entire mentorship program for people that know nothing. I specifically designed it for people that have never even bought a tablet before. So we start 0. We start from how to open the program, not joking, because when you open ZBrush, you can't just start sculpting. Like, there's so much to learn. I baby step them all the way through. I've also had 3 students of mine take this full time. So if you're interested in this from a business aspect, even just like enough to pay for a pizza every month, I can help with that as well. Roy says, do you start with concept art or sketches? Kind of. What I mostly start with is that's a lot of good questions, guys. What I mostly start with is the requester. So on Patreon, where I share all these files, I also work off a request board. So people will be like, hey, my D&D character looks like this. In this case, he said it was a Lizardfolk snake oil salesman. He wanted him to wear a suit, have a fedora. I did change that to a bowler hat. Have a cane with a decorative top, a belt with pouches and bottles. And he didn't provide any reference images. Sometimes they do. I went to Google and I just grabbed, here, I'm gonna show you guys. Boop. I found this mini, I liked him. I found a lizard head, another lizard head, and then another lizard. Again, I kind of scrolled around Pinterest and stuff. As you can tell, my finished model, it doesn't look nothing like the references, but it's definitely just taking pieces for me to, reference. Crazy. But no, I don't do any original sketches myself. I am a pitiful 2D artist. I am working on changing that. I treat 2D art like sketching with a pen or pencil, pretty much like a part-time job right now. I'm working very hard to get better at that. It does not come to me naturally, ironically. I would say with 3D art, I was talented. Like, it came to me pretty easily. I have to fight tooth and nail with a pencil. I'm terrible at it. And then Eric said, oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. The mentorship is just supposed to be fun. That's the big thing. And I find what helps my students the most is getting them into a routine. I really, really harp on the magic being just opening ZBrush every day. People ask like, oh, how did you go from sculpting as a hobby to professional? Because I don't know if you guys know this, but I had never sculpted a model or opened a 3D software prior to 2018. And then by 2019, I was doing this full time. So not a realistic timeline, a little unhinged. I do work hard. This doesn't just happen without blood, sweat, and tears. But it's totally doable. You can do it. And I credit a lot of my success just to opening the program every day. Sometimes I just open it and close it right away. But most days, I make a model. I'm glad you think I'm funny. I think I'm funny too, Eric. All right. I think this is kind of wrapping up. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Again, I highly encourage y'all, if you had a good time, subscribe and like the video. It does really help me. I guess don't like it if you don't like it. I don't know why you're still here if you didn't like it, but anyway. And then if you're interested in my mentorship or getting the files, I have both links to that in my description. So yeah. Bill says, if it's not a rude question, how popular is your mentorship program? I guess it kind of depends what you consider popular. I have about 30 people in my program, and I think about 5 of them are very, very consistent and diligent, like hard worker types. The rest of them just kind of do it casually, or they bought it for like their kid, and their kid kind of tunes in every now and then. But to me, I think a couple dozen is crazy. I could fill a classroom if they were all in person. I couldn't fill like a auditorium, like if it was like a college level professor, but I could fill a grade school classroom. So I would say very successful. And as far as like how long people stick with it. It really varies, you know, people are busy, and my average student sticks around anywhere between 6 months to a year. I do have the outliers that took this full time and they have been a student of mine for 2 to 3 years. But again, I didn't even start teaching until like 2021, so it's pretty new still. Phil says nice. Yeah. All right, really good questions. I'm going to sign off before I just talk to you guys all day because I still have other stuff I need to do off camera. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. It really means the world to me. And I'll see you guys tomorrow or in the future. So yeah, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Have a great Monday.